In the third week of May 1940, Air Chief Marshal Sir Hugh Dowding stood before the War Cabinet in London and pulled a graph from his breast pocket. The room went quiet. The graph showed a single line, hurricane losses over France, falling like a stone. Dowding looked at Churchill and said, in a voice that carried no drama and no hope, that if the line continued at the same rate for 10 more days, there would not be a single hurricane left in France or in England. Nobody in the room argued with him. Nobody could. Since May the 10th, when Germany had torn through France and the Low Countries, the Royal Air Force had lost 959 aircraft. 477 of those were fighters, 386 Hurricanes, 67 Spitfires, the rest a scattering of older types that were barely fit to fly. Over Dunkirk alone, 106 fighters had gone down in 9 days. More than 300 pilots were gone with them, dead, burned, drowned, or sitting in German camps. What remained of fighter command was not an air force. It was a skeleton. 331 Hurricanes and Spitfires, still operational across the whole of Britain. 36 fighters in reserve. Dowding had calculated that 52 squadrons was the bare minimum needed to defend the country. He was down to the equivalent of 36. And the German bombers had not even turned toward England yet. Behind the front line, the production system was collapsing under its own weight. Aircraft manufacturing was scattered across 19 different ministries. The Air Ministry, the Ministry of Supply, the Ministry of Labour, and a constellation of interdepartmental committees that generated memos, turf wars, and excuses rather than airplanes. The crown jewel of incompetence was Castle Bromwich Aircraft Factory, a vast government-funded plant that was supposed to be Britain's Spitfire powerhouse. Lord Nuffield's automobile organisation had been given £4 million and a promise to deliver 240 Spitfires a month by May 1940. They had delivered precisely none, not one. The factory was a derelict workshop, machinery unused, workers untrained, subcontractors missing. Churchill's answer to this catastrophe was, by any rational measure, insane. He handed total control of British aircraft production to a 61-year-old Canadian newspaper baron who had never designed, built, or repaired a single aeroplane in his life. A man the king personally advised against appointing. A man whose own wife called one of the 3 dreadful B's and begged Churchill to cut from his life like a microbe in his blood. A man Clement Attlee had called the most wicked he had ever met. A man whose newspaper had printed, on the day of the Munich Agreement, the headline that became the most embarrassing in the history of British journalism: "There will be no European war this year or next year either." His name was Lord Beaverbrook, and within 4 months he would triple fighter production, turn the wreckage of shot-down planes into flying machines, convince the women of Britain to donate their Saucepans for Spitfires, and deliver the aircraft that won the Battle of Britain. The man half the establishment wanted destroyed turned out to be the only one who could save them. William Maxwell Aitken was born on the 25th of May, 1879, in Maple, Ontario, the 5th of 10 children fathered by a Scottish-born Presbyterian minister. The family moved to Newcastle, New Brunswick, when Max was about a year old, and the boy grew up in a small Canadian timber town where the winters were brutal and ambition was considered a character flaw. His teachers described him as bright, idle, and mischievous. He wore the last word like a badge for the rest of his life. He was not an academic. When the time came for university entrance examinations, young Aitken refused to sit the Latin and Greek papers, not because he could not pass them, because he did not see the point. This was the pattern that would define everything that followed. He ran a bowling alley with a friend named R.B. Bennett, who would later become Prime Minister of Canada. He tried a meat business in Edmonton. It collapsed and he fled his creditors. He drifted through insurance sales, learning nothing about insurance, but everything about persuasion. His real education began in 1900, when the 21-year-old Aitken arrived in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and fell under the wing of a financier named John Fitzwilliam Stairs. Stairs taught him the mechanics of corporate finance, how to buy companies, merge them, and sell the result for more than the sum of its parts. When Stairs died unexpectedly in 1904, Aitken did not mourn. He seized control of the Royal Securities Corporation and began building. By 1909, he had engineered a deal that made his reputation and poisoned it forever. He merged 10 Portland cement companies into a single entity called Canada Cement, creating a near monopoly on Canadian cement production. The deal was enormously profitable. It was also, depending on who you asked, either brilliant or fraudulent. Sir Sandford Fleming accused Aitken of buying the companies for roughly $14 million, while telling shareholders he had paid over $27 million, pocketing the difference in bonds and shares. The scandal consumed Canadian newspapers for months. By 30, Max Aitken was a millionaire with a stench that would not wash off. He sailed for England in 1910, partly to start fresh, mostly to find a bigger stage. London suited him. His friendship with fellow New Brunswicker Andrew Bonar Law launched him into conservative politics. He won the seat of Ashton-under-Lyne in the December 1910 general election by 196 votes, and immediately began operating not as a politician, but as a dealer. Within a year, he had maneuvered behind the scenes to make Bonar Law the Conservative Party leader, an act that baffled and infuriated the establishment. Balfour's private secretary complained of much intrigue by Max Aitken, the little Canadian adventurer. The phrase was meant as an insult. Aitken would have framed it. In December 1916, he engineered something larger, the fall of Prime Minister Asquith and the rise of Lloyd George. He called it an honest intrigue. Lloyd George rewarded him with a peerage on the 23rd of January 1917. Aitken chose the title Beaverbrook after a small stream near his childhood home. King George V privately objected to the honour. The objection changed nothing, but newspapers, not Parliament, became his real weapon. He had acquired the struggling Daily Express in 1916. He founded the Sunday Express in 1921 and bought the Evening Standard in 1929. Under his ownership, the Daily Express grew from under 400,000 copies a day to 2.25 million by 1936, the largest newspaper circulation on the planet. When asked by a royal commission in 1947 why he ran his papers, Beaverbrook answered, with perfect honesty, purely for propaganda purposes, he said. Stanley Baldwin, the Conservative leader, delivered the most famous counterattack. In March 1931, using a line borrowed from Rudyard Kipling, Baldwin told a packed hall that what the proprietorship of these papers was aiming at was power, and power without responsibility, the prerogative of the harlot throughout the ages. The political cartoonist David Lowe captured his physical presence better than any photograph. Large head, boyish face, wide forehead, unruly hair, a small nose with a peculiar curve, and a wide grin belied by a sharp, light eye. A slight, small figure, short neck, high shoulders, hairy hands, an undistinguished dark blue suit. Lady Diana Cooper called him that animated little deformity, and in the same breath a strange, attractive gnome with an odor of genius about him. Beaverbrook described himself differently. On the rock-bound coast of New Brunswick, he said, the waves break incessantly. Every now and then comes a particularly dangerous wave that breaks viciously into the rock. It is called the rage. That is me. His enemies were numerous and eloquent. Clement Attlee called him the most wicked man he had ever met. Evelyn Waugh wrote of his deep malevolence and turned him into Lord Copper in the novel Scoop. Lord Salisbury warned Churchill against him, a very wicked man. Ask anyone in Canada. Clementine Churchill loathed him, and H.G. Wells offered the verdict that stuck longest. If ever Max gets to heaven, he will not last long. He will be chucked out for trying to pull off a merger between heaven and hell after having secured a controlling interest in key subsidiary companies in both places. Perhaps worst of all was his judgment on the single most important question of the 1930s. The Daily Express headline on the 30th of September, 1938, the day of the Munich Agreement, read in capitals across the front page, "There will be no European war this year or next year either." The paper reprinted it well into 1939. When war came anyway, Beaverbrook's credibility as a political thinker was shattered. He had championed appeasement. He had congratulated Ribbentrop on becoming German foreign minister. And yet Winston Churchill, who had opposed appeasement with every breath in his body, loved the man. They had met in early 1911, introduced by F.E. Smith. After Churchill's humiliation over the Dardanelles, it was Aitken who visited to offer sympathy, who let Churchill stay at his house in France. Their friendship survived decades of political disagreement, the gold standard, India, the Empire Crusade, because it was built on something older than policy. Churchill explained it simply. We belonged to an older political generation. Often we had been on different sides. Sometimes we had been fiercely opposed. Yet on the whole, a relationship had been maintained, which was a part of the continuity of my public life. His most famous line about Beaverbrook was shorter. Some people have hobbies, Churchill said. I have Max. In May 1940, with Britain on the edge of annihilation, Churchill reached for the most dangerous man he trusted. Churchill became Prime Minister on the 10th of May 1940, the same day German tanks crossed into France. He had wanted Beaverbrook in government since November 1939, writing to Chamberlain that when he talked to Beaverbrook, he had a feeling of knowledge, force, and experience that he did not find with most men he met. Chamberlain refused. Now there was no Chamberlain to refuse. On May the 10th, Churchill lunched and dined with Beaverbrook. On the 11th, they lunched alone. On the 12th, after spending the afternoon and evening together, Beaverbrook agreed to serve. The formal announcement came on the 14th of May. The Ministry of Aircraft Production officially came into being on the 17th. From the first hour, it was at war, not with Germany, but with the Air Ministry. The new ministry was carved directly out of the Air Ministry's body, like a tumor cut from living flesh. Beaverbrook was given authority over all aspects of aircraft manufacturing, factories, raw materials, labor allocation, storage units, maintenance depots, repair organizations. Everything the Air Ministry had controlled for 20 years was ripped away and handed to a man they considered an illiterate colonial with ink-stained fingers and no understanding of aeronautics. The resentment was immediate, total, and permanent. King George VI personally advised Churchill to choose someone else, noting that the Canadians did not appreciate him. Clementine Churchill was hostile. Senior officials viewed Beaverbrook as an unprincipled press baron with no manufacturing credentials and a catastrophic record of judgment on the single question that mattered most, whether there would be a war at all. Beaverbrook did not operate from the ministry's official premises. He set up shop in Stornoway House, his own private London mansion overlooking Green Park. Secretaries commandeered beds for desks and set up typewriters in bathrooms. The building smelled of cigar smoke, cold tea, and panic. 2 notices hung in his office. The first read, "Committees take the punch out of war." The second, "Organization is the enemy of improvisation." These were not decorations. They were declarations of war against every principle the British civil service held sacred. In his first week, he toured aircraft factories across England for 3 days straight, walking production floors, interrogating foremen, ignoring managing directors. He informed company boards that their authority was suspended for the duration of the war. He replaced managers with engineers and foremen who reported directly to him, not to committees, not to boards, not to the Air Ministry. He set production targets 15% above what industry considered the absolute maximum. He called the Air Ministry the Ministry of Obstruction and scrawled corrections across civil servants' reports in red ink. Few records were kept. Functions were left undefined. Business was conducted over the telephone at speed with no minutes taken. His working pace would have hospitalized a younger man. 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, hundreds of phone calls daily. His 3 a.m. calls to factory managers became the stuff of legend across British industry. A foreman in Birmingham or a plant supervisor in Southampton might be dragged from sleep at the dead of night and hear that flat Canadian voice on the line demanding to know why the morning's output was 4 units short. If we are up, there is no reason why you should not be. One academic assessment put it bluntly. He fired people and achieved terror. Another called it infectious urgency. He recruited a tight circle of industrialists who shared his contempt for procedure. Patrick Hennessy, general manager of Ford Motors in Britain, later said it was the most exciting time of his life. They broke all the rules. Trevor Westbrook, a volatile former general manager of Vickers Armstrong, became another key lieutenant. Beaverbrook bypassed the entire civil service hierarchy and worked directly with the men and women on the factory floor. His most decisive early act was the seizure of Castle Bromwich from Lord Nuffield. The phone call came on the 17th of May, 3 days after Beaverbrook took office. He demanded to know why no Spitfires had been produced after £4 million of investment. When Nuffield, dripping with sarcasm, suggested that Beaverbrook might like to take control himself, Beaverbrook replied instantly, "That is very generous of you, Nuffield. I accept," and hung up before Nuffield could take it back. Within 5 minutes, he had called Vickers and ordered them to assume control of the factory. Nuffield, furious, complained to Churchill. Beaverbrook countered by sending Sir Richard Fairey to inspect the plant. Fairey's secret report was devastating. Expensive machinery sitting idle, the assembly line in chaos, the labour force in a very bad state. Edward Rex Talamo was installed as the new man in charge, a mustachioed optimist who bet Beaverbrook 500 guineas he could double production. The results spoke for themselves. 10 Spitfires rolled out in June, 23 in July, 37 in August, 56 in September. Within a year, Castle Bromwich was the largest Spitfire producer in the country. By the end of the war, that single factory had built over 12,000 aircraft, more than half of all the Spitfires ever made. The Air Ministry seethed. Beaverbrook had taken their authority, their factories, their storage depots, and their dignity. He had done it in 3 weeks, without a single committee meeting, and with the full backing of a Prime Minister who rewarded him every Saturday night with either a letter or a telegram. A letter if the production figures were good, a telegram if they were outstanding. The establishment had told Churchill that this man would destroy the RAF. Instead, he was rebuilding it from the factory floor up, 3 a.m. phone call at a time. Beaverbrook's achievement is often reduced to a single word: energy. He shouted louder, worked longer, bullied harder, but that explanation is lazy and it is wrong. What he actually did was redesign the entire production system around 3 mechanical principles, any one of which would have been significant. Together they tripled output in under 4 months. Understanding how requires looking past the personality and into the machinery. The first principle was ruthless elimination. When Beaverbrook took control on the 14th of May, British aircraft factories were attempting to build dozens of different types simultaneously. Fighters, bombers, trainers, reconnaissance planes, prototypes, experimental variants. Every type required its own jigs, its own tooling, its own supply chain, its own allocation of skilled labor. The result was a production system that did everything and excelled at nothing. Beaverbrook took a pencil and crossed out everything except 5 aircraft, 2 fighters, the Spitfire and the Hurricane, 3 bombers, the Wellington, the Whitley, and the Blenheim. Every other program was frozen, deferred, or scrapped. Raw materials, machine tools, and skilled workers were stripped from cancelled projects and redirected to the 5 survivors. If a factory had been building trainer aircraft, it was now building Hurricanes. If an engineering team had been developing a new reconnaissance variant, they were now fixing Spitfire production bottlenecks. This was not popular. Bomber Command saw its long-term offensive starved of resources. Development teams working on next-generation aircraft were furious, and Beaverbrook's most notorious cancellation nearly destroyed one of the finest aircraft of the entire war. Geoffrey de Havilland had designed a fast light bomber built almost entirely of wood, plywood and balsa, bonded with glue requiring almost no strategic metals. The aircraft could outrun most fighters, needed no gun turrets, and could be built by furniture makers rather than aircraft engineers. It was called the Mosquito, and Beaverbrook dismissed it as a frivolity. He mocked it openly, calling it Freeman's folly after Sir Wilfrid Freeman, the Air Ministry's brilliant procurement chief, who had championed the design. Freeman was the quiet counterweight to Beaverbrook's chaos. He had personally selected nearly every important RAF aircraft of the war: the Hurricane, the Spitfire, the Lancaster, the Mosquito. He admired Beaverbrook's pace and admitted he would not have thought it possible for anyone to go on as he does day after day, with only 6 hours of rest. But Freeman also understood that winning a war required thinking beyond next Tuesday. He fought for the Mosquito behind the scenes, shielding it from cancellation through bureaucratic maneuvering that Beaverbrook never fully detected. The Mosquito survived, entered service, and became one of the most versatile combat aircraft ever built. A bomber, a night fighter, a pathfinder, a photo reconnaissance platform. Freeman's quiet stubbornness saved it. Beaverbrook would have turned it into firewood. The second principle was resurrection. Before Beaverbrook, a fighter that crashed or was shot down was in most cases written off. The wreckage sat in fields or was hauled to scrap yards. Engines, instruments, control surfaces, undercarriage assemblies, all of it lost. The Civilian Repair Organisation existed on paper, a modest operation under Lord Nuffield, repairing damaged aircraft at the Morris Motors Works in Cowley, Oxford. It was small, slow, and treated as an afterthought. Beaverbrook seized the CRO on the 14th of May, the same day he took office, and turned it into a second production line. His first order was the cannibalization of approximately 2,000 wrecked aircraft, sitting in fields and depots across Britain. The logic was brutal and simple. For every 2 destroyed fighters, his teams would fashion one that could fly. Wings from one wreck, a fuselage from another, an engine stripped and rebuilt from a third. Nothing was wasted. The CRO expanded from a single factory into a national network of civilian firms, aircraft manufacturers, engineering companies, woodworking shops, garages. Damaged fighters were loaded onto enormous articulated lorries called Queen Marys and transported to the nearest repair depot. For minor damage, a pilot could fly his aircraft to a CRO workshop at a nearby airfield, wait while it was patched, and fly it out the same day. For heavier damage, the aircraft was stripped, rebuilt, test flown, and returned to its squadron. The numbers tell the story. By the beginning of July 1940, repaired aircraft output had risen 186% compared to levels before Beaverbrook arrived. During the Battle of Britain itself, the CRO returned nearly 1,900 aircraft to service. By the end of 1940, the organisation had repaired 4,955 airframes at roughly 35% of the total airframe output going to the RAF that year. Across the entire war, from May 1940 to July 1945, the CRO returned 79,000 aircraft to the flight line. By 1944, more than a third of all heavy aircraft flying in the RAF had passed through CRO workshops at least once. Tom Neal, a Hurricane pilot with 249 Squadron during the Battle of Britain, described the effect from the cockpit. Every morning, replacement aircraft appeared on the flight line as if conjured from thin air. Where they came from, no one knew, he wrote, but every morning there they were, as though they had been delivered by angels. Those angels were mechanics in overalls, working in requisitioned garages and bus depots, rebuilding shattered Hurricanes with parts salvaged from 3 different wrecks. We covered the Merlin engine in our video about the Spitfire, that extraordinary power plant that gave British fighters their edge. But an engine without an airframe is just expensive metal. Beaverbrook CRO ensured that every surviving Merlin had a body to live in. The third principle was psychology, and this is where the newspaper baron showed his true craft. On the 10th of July 1940, the day the Battle of Britain officially began, Beaverbrook launched one of the most famous propaganda campaigns of the war. The appeal appeared in the Times under the headline, "Aluminium for Aircraft, an appeal to women." The message was pure Fleet Street, short, direct, and emotionally irresistible. We want it, and we want it now. New and old, of every type and description, and all of it. We will turn your pots and pans into Spitfires and Hurricanes, Blenheims and Wellingtons. The campaign became known as Saucepans for Spitfires. The Women's Voluntary Service, led by Lady Reading, established 1,600 collection centres across Britain in a matter of days. The response was overwhelming. Saucepans, frying pans, colanders, tea trays, kettles, pot lids, shoe trees, anything made of aluminium was hauled to collection points. Chelsea pensioners, elderly veterans of earlier wars, were photographed adding their frying pans to the growing heaps. Disabled veterans of the First World War donated their aluminium artificial limbs. A child's toy aeroplane sat perched on top of a pile of donated pans at Chelsea Town Hall, an image that captured the mood of an entire nation. Here is the truth that Beaverbrook never admitted publicly. The government did not need the aluminium. Britain had adequate supplies through Canadian imports. The household aluminium was the correct grade for aircraft production, but the volume collected was a fraction of what the factories consumed. Beaverbrook's own son, Sir Max Aitken, later conceded that the appeal was nothing more than a propaganda exercise. But that was precisely the point. Beaverbrook understood something that no Air Ministry committee ever could, that a woman who had given her saucepan for a Spitfire was emotionally invested in that Spitfire's survival. A nation that felt it was personally building the fighters would endure the bombing with greater resolve. It was not manufacturing, it was morale engineering, applied at industrial scale by a man who had spent 30 years manufacturing public opinion for a living. Inside the factories, he applied the same instinct. Production tallies were plastered on walls. Sub-assembly shops competed against each other in league tables. Every Saturday afternoon, weekly production charts were brought to Stornoway House. After reading them, Beaverbrook sent them by dispatch rider to Churchill at Chequers. The system had the competitive energy of a Fleet Street newsroom, Deadlines, league tables, public shaming of underperformers, and praise for those who exceeded targets. A J.P. Taylor, who knew Beaverbrook personally, captured the effect in a single observation. He had a gift for making you feel, when you were with him, that you were the most important person in the world. Of course, I knew he forgot about me the moment I left the room, but it was magical all the same. 3 principles: eliminate everything that does not produce fighters, rebuild everything that can still fly, and make every person in the country, from the factory foreman to the housewife with a colander, believe that they are personally winning the war. No committee designed this system. No ministry approved it. One man imposed it by force of will in the space of a few weeks. The numbers arrived on Beaverbrook's desk every Saturday, and by midsummer 1940 they told a story that no one in the Air Ministry had believed possible. In the first 4 months of the year, before Beaverbrook existed as a minister, Britain had produced 638 fighters, an average of 160 per month. In his first 4 months, from May through August, the factories delivered approximately 1,875. The average had leapt to 469 per month. The ratio was 2.9 to 1. The claim that he tripled production was not propaganda. It was arithmetic. The month-by-month acceleration was relentless. 325 fighters in May, his first partial month. 446 in June, his first full month in charge. 496 in July, the peak. 476 in August, the height of the Battle of Britain. Total fighter production for 1940 would reach approximately 4,283 aircraft. The comparison with Germany made the achievement strategic, not merely industrial. In 1940, Germany produced roughly 2,735 fighters, 1,667 Messerschmitt 109s, and just over 1,000 Messerschmitt 110s. Britain outproduced Germany in fighters by 57%. During the critical summer months, the gap was even wider. In July alone, British factories delivered 496 fighters against Germany's approximately 240. Britain held a 2-to-1 advantage throughout the period that mattered most. Fighter Command entered the Battle of Britain on the 10th of July with approximately 644 operational fighters. The battle would consume over 1,000 of them in under 4 months, and yet when it ended on the 31st of October, Fighter Command possessed 732 frontline fighters, 88 more than it had started with. A net gain during the most intense air battle in history. German fighter strength over England, meanwhile, collapsed from 725 to 275. The Luftwaffe was bleeding out in an industrial war it had not expected and could not win. But the battle was not fought on spreadsheets. It was fought at 20,000 feet by exhausted young men, and the most dangerous fortnight of the entire war nearly broke them. Between the 24th of August and the 6th of September, the Luftwaffe shifted tactics and began systematically attacking RAF airfields and sector stations, the nerve centers that coordinated fighter defense. In those 13 days, 273 RAF fighters were destroyed. 103 pilots were lost, gone in cockpit fires, spinning into the channel, or buried in the wreckage of their aircraft on English soil. Number 85 Squadron lost 14 of its 18 pilots in 2 weeks. Some of the survivors flew 6 sorties a day. Churchill himself acknowledged the danger. In the fighting between August the 24th and September the 6th, he wrote, "The scales had tilted against Fighter Command. 3 more weeks at that rate might have been fatal, not because of aircraft, Beaverbrook's factories, and the CRO were replacing machines faster than the Luftwaffe could destroy them. The crisis was pilots. Operational training units could produce only about 115 new fighter pilots per fortnight at emergency pace, barely matching the losses. Dowding identified this as the true bottleneck. In his official dispatch after the war, he wrote that Beaverbrook's appointment had an effect that could be described as magical, and that the heavy aircraft wastage during the Battle of Britain ceased to be a primary danger, its place being taken by the difficulty of producing trained fighter pilots in adequate numbers. The press baron had solved the machine problem. The human problem was beyond even his reach. Then the Luftwaffe came for the factories themselves. On the 24th of September 1940, 17 aircraft attacked the Supermarine Works at Woolston, Southampton, at 10 minutes to 2 in the afternoon. The raid was led by Martin Lutz of Airprobungsgruppe 210, and the bombers achieved near complete surprise. One bomb scored a direct hit on a work shelter. 55 Supermarine workers were gone in an instant. 92 more were injured. 2 days later, on the 26th, 35 Heinkel 111 bombers, escorted by 50 fighters, dropped 70 tons of high explosive on both the Woolston and Itchen plants. Both factories were wrecked. Spitfire production stopped completely. Another 37 workers perished. Beaverbrook travelled to Southampton personally. He walked through the wreckage, spoke to the surviving workers, and made a decision that the Air Ministry would never have made in time. He ordered the complete abandonment of both plants. Not repair, not reconstruction. Abandonment. What followed was one of the most remarkable improvisations of the war. Spitfire production was dispersed, scattered across dozens of small workshops within a 50-mile radius of Southampton. His ministry requisitioned garages, bus stations, laundries, and civilian buildings of every description. Neas Garage became a Spitfire assembly point. Seward's Garage became another. The top floor of the Polygon Hotel in central Southampton was converted into Supermarine's production headquarters. New dispersal sites were established in Newbury, Hungerford, Salisbury, Trowbridge and Reading. 4 underground factories were ordered built. Chattis Hill Airfield was reactivated with hangars hidden beneath tree cover. Production slowed for approximately 3 weeks, but aircraft held at maintenance units covered the gap, and fighter command suffered no operational effect. When production resumed, the dispersal had made the system stronger than before. Instead of 2 large factories that a single raid could destroy, Spitfire manufacturing was now spread across scores of small, inconspicuous workshops that German bombers could never systematically find or target. The Luftwaffe had struck at the heart of Spitfire production, and in doing so had forced Beaverbrook to build something more resilient than what they had destroyed. On the 20th of August 1940, with the Battle of Britain raging overhead, Churchill rose in the House of Commons and delivered a tribute that would follow Beaverbrook for the rest of his life. The splendid, nay astounding increase in the output and repair of British aircraft and engines which Lord Beaverbrook has achieved by a genius of organisation and drive which looks like magic, has given us overflowing reserves of every type of aircraft and an ever-mounting stream of production, both in quantity and quality. Overflowing reserves. 4 months earlier, Dowding had been counting fighters on his fingers. Dowding himself, the man who had pulled that graph from his pocket and told Churchill there would be nothing left, wrote his own verdict after the war. We had the organisation, we had the men, and we had the spirit which could bring us victory in the air, but we had not the supply of machines necessary to withstand the drain of continuous battle. Lord Beaverbrook gave us those machines, and I do not believe that I exaggerate when I say that no other man in England could have done so. From the man who needed the aircraft most, there could be no higher praise, and yet the triumph contained its own poison. Beaverbrook's methods had made him the most hated man in Whitehall. His most consequential enemy was Ernest Bevin, Minister of Labour, a trade union giant who controlled workforce allocation and refused to let Beaverbrook ride roughshod over labour regulations. Beaverbrook demanded 7-day weeks with no rest. Bevin demanded that workers be treated as human beings, not fuel to be burned. Their hostility grew to such an extent that it embarrassed Churchill and caused, in the words of General Leslie Hollis, a great deal of unhappiness in the government. A J.P. Taylor's verdict was blunt. His improvising zest broke on the rock of Ernest Bevin. Freeman, the quiet man who had saved the Mosquito, served as chief executive of the Ministry of Aircraft Production and watched Beaverbrook's chaos from the inside. He admired the energy. He also spent much of his time repairing the damage, preserving development programs that Beaverbrook wanted to cancel, maintaining relationships that Beaverbrook had destroyed, and ensuring that the long-term needs of the RAF were not sacrificed entirely to the short-term crisis. Freeman's biographer later demonstrated that many of the production changes credited to Beaverbrook had in fact been recommended by Freeman before Beaverbrook arrived. When Freeman left the ministry in November 1940, moved against his will, the organization rapidly stagnated. When he returned in 1942, it ran properly again. The irony was quiet, but devastating. The system Beaverbrook despised was the system that made his achievements last. Beaverbrook submitted resignation letters to Churchill repeatedly during his 11 months in office, possibly as many as a dozen. Churchill ignored them all until the 30th of April, 1941, when Beaverbrook finally departed. Chronic asthma was the stated reason. Exhaustion and political isolation were closer to the truth. He was succeeded by John Moore Brabazon, and the ministry carried on without him. His short-termism had real costs. The exclusive focus on 5 aircraft types had starved longer-term development. His production targets were deliberately unrealistic. It was not until Sir Stafford Cripps introduced what he called realistic forecasts in 1943 that planning aligned with reality. His prioritization system was so narrow that essentials like ammunition and tanks fell outside it entirely, and his attempted cancellation of the Mosquito, had Freeman not quietly blocked it, would have deprived the RAF of one of its most effective weapons. General Hollis offered the most balanced view from inside government. For all Beaverbrook's tremendous achievement in producing aeroplanes, there was little to praise in the way he rode roughshod over everyone. But he added in the next breath, Beaverbrook was a staunch and faithful friend to me, and immensely kind. That was the paradox that nobody in Whitehall could resolve. The man who saved the RAF could not survive the institution he had saved it from. His methods were unsustainable. His personality was corrosive. His judgment on everything except production was frequently catastrophic. And yet in the summer of 1940, when the margin between survival and defeat was measured in aircraft per week, he was the only man in England who could have done what needed to be done. The system hated him for it. The system also owed him its existence. Lord Beaverbrook passed away on the 9th of June 1964 at Churchill Court in Surrey. He was 85. He had recently attended a birthday banquet organised by Lord Thompson, determined to appear in good form despite the cancer that was finishing him. His ashes were returned to Newcastle, New Brunswick, the small timber town where a Presbyterian minister's mischievous son had first learned that rules were for other people. The historians have argued over him ever since. A J.P. Taylor, who wrote his biography and was at one point his employee, counted Beaverbrook among the immortal few who won the Battle of Britain. David Egerton of Imperial College countered that Britain was already the world's largest aircraft producer, and that the production capacity had been planned under Chamberlain's government, not conjured by Beaverbrook's personality. Charles Williams, in his 19 biography, offered the careful middle ground. The June 1940 production peak could hardly be credited to a man who had been in office for 2 weeks. They are all partly right. The factories existed before him. The workforce existed before him. The designs existed before him. What did not exist was the acceleration, fierce, chaotic, and terrifying, at the precise moment when the distance between survival and defeat was measured in Spitfires per week. In May 1940, Dowding had 331 fighters and 36 in reserve. By October, after losing over 1,000 aircraft in combat, he had more than he started with. That margin was Beaverbrook's. The establishment despised him for how he built it. They also survived because he did. Time magazine wrote it plainest at the time. If Britain holds out, it will be his triumph. This war is a war of machines. It will be won on the assembly line held, and the man half of Britain wanted destroyed turned out to be the one they could not do without.